It'd just be weird if it was at the top of the podcast.
Well, we have you here. That something's on fire. I didn't want to be so cheesy and just say the roof.
Yeah, it's literally right below us. I feel better. Oh. All right.
We're gonna do the best we can with what we have. I'm like, is it still going? Is it gonna stop?
I feel like it's moving away.
Okay.
It's fast because we are at Sunset and Vine. So.
All right. And let's. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Shut Up and Listen. I'm so excited for my guest today that I've been wanting to have on this show for quite some time. And I mean, you guys probably know him from the hundreds of commercials he's done, or my God, I'm blanking. This is why you need notes. Harold and Kumar, voiceover actor. We were in a film together called Stuck, shameless plug. LA to Vegas.
You're pretty much doing what people on the street do when they run into me. They're like, "Oh, you are wearing a thing, but I know you."
But, I mean, you've been doing this such a long time, and you've done so much. Amir Talai, welcome.
Hi,
welcome.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I am pretty good. I'm above ground, so every day above ground's a good day, right?
I mean, depending.
That's compared to the alternative, right?
Well, I mean, I would prefer to be underground if there was a nuclear explosion.
Oh, okay.
Of some kind.
Yeah, sure. I guess that's possible.
I'm finding more and more that I'm quite the literalist.
Yeah.
So when I hear things like, above ground, I'm like, yeah, but there's some times that being below ground is actually preferable.
Yeah. Sure.
So you're above ground, you're alive, things are pretty good.
Yeah. Under the circumstances, sure.
Yeah.
Right. The world is burning, but we're doing what we can.
Yeah, so much so that we had to wait 5 minutes for fire trucks to stop their sirens. The world is blowing.
Literally, the world is burning.
So
Again, Heather the literalist.
Sometimes it works to my benefit.
Oh, okay.
So I was, as I try to do, to take this podcast seriously and the guests that come on seriously.
I would hope so.
So your parents emigrated here from Iran in the 70s, correct?
Yes, early 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's just dive in.
Okay, great.
So I read that you had spoken about having two different lives almost growing up, that there was like the life that you had during the week when you were going to school, and then the life that you would have on the weekends.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm not sure where you read that, and I remember saying that, but I think looking back, it was more sort of moment to moment than that. It wasn't so much, like a custody situation, 5 days on, 2 days off.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, I think that growing up in San Francisco, I don't think I came into contact with anyone who sort of understood what Iranian meant, who Persian people were. And so at school, in like sports, in like acting, theater and stuff like that, I think there was just a sense that that we didn't see color. Because people sort of didn't know what to make of me anyway. And then when I hung out with my parents or my parents' friends, all of whom were Iranian, then we would be, all the grown-ups would be speaking Persian, eating Persian. We'd go on these like group camping trips together. So yeah, it was definitely sort of two very different sides of me and my experience.
Where did you go camping?
Went up like Mendocino, like northern California.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like a 2-hour drive. was like car camping.
Yeah.
But it was probably like my dad and like 10 of his Persian friends, randomly all of their white wives, and then all of their mixed kids, and then my family, which is 100% Persian. And we just hung out, and like the guys did all the cooking, like the Persian guys did all the cooking, and it was great fun. It was awesome.
That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That sounds like an absolute blast. I mean, I'm like, I want to go camping with your family and 10 other couples.
It was a really interesting experience, like looking back to think of like how sort of blended it was. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I'm serious when I say that like all of my dad's Persian friends married American women. And all of those men came over here around the same time in the sort of like 60s and early 70s.
Yeah.
And they were all buds. They like grew up together in sort of like Napa and San Francisco. Not grew up together, but sort of came up together.
Yeah.
In Napa and San Francisco. And met all these American women, married them, and like, you know, to this day they're all still like friends, and it's this like sort of mini community within the larger Persian community in the Bay Area.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and we would speak English on these camping trips, but then like eat Persian, you know, and then there's like the conversations between some of the guys sometimes would be just in Persian, and it was just really cool, you know. All the kids were friends, you know. There was probably a 10-year age range between all of the kids, but we were all just sort of all hanging out together, and it was great.
And do you still speak to those kids?
I think like mostly just through Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And what was it like for you then growing up in San Francisco at that time period? I know that you got your start primarily in theater.
Yeah.
Down there, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I was doing theater from like middle school on, and then when I graduated from college, which was in the Bay Area, still doing theater up there, and then just supplementing it with little sort of like voiceover jobs or little commercials, but mostly making my living in theater until that was sort of unsustainable because there just aren't enough theater jobs. So then I had to move down here. Yeah.
And do you have a preference? Because I mean, I remember that when we were shooting Stuck, you were also in the middle of doing a play. It wasn't Annie. It was
the Fantastics.
That's right.
The Fascinating Playhouse. Yeah. I would say probably my preference at this point, if you're asking me today, it's theater. I don't get the chance to do it much because there still aren't that many roles for Middle Eastern people in theater, unless you're talking about like the Middle Eastern play that the regional theater puts on, of like, oh, you know, we're going to have 5 shows that are all white people, and then a show that deals with the Iraq War. And then it's like, oh, great. So, you know, we explore that. But more and more theaters are getting creative, or I should say open-minded, about casting. So like I have an audition for just a white guy in a play that takes place in like 1900 next week, which I'm stoked about. But the reason I like theater more is that I'm sort of, I just miss the acting of theater. You know what I mean? I feel like in film and TV, the vast majority of people are not acting. The vast majority of what you do is not acting, right? Like on LA to Vegas, I had probably like 4 to 8 lines per episode, which, don't get me wrong, it was a fun job, and I enjoyed being with Dylan McDermott. Like, he was a fantastic person to like pal around with, but the majority of my career has been spent standing near famous white people like Dylan McDermott. And I'm fortunate I'm very privileged to have gotten to where I've gotten in my career and to been able to spend great time with people like him. And I did a movie with like Laura Dern and Scarlett Johansson, and that was like ridiculous, like so cool. But I spent the majority of my time on screen sitting near them silently. And even if you look at like Avengers, right? Like the sort of biggest movies, I don't know that I'd call much of what they're doing acting. You know what I mean? It's like action, scream, cut, right? Like that's not a scene. So I just did a play at the LA Fringe that was like a 45-minute play, 2 people, theater sat like 50 audience members. And I was like, oh, I actually get to act. I get to talk and listen and be, and like, this is what acting is. So I'm sort of transitioning in my career, I feel like, where I'm really seeing stuff like commercials, stuff like movies where I stand near famous white people, as sort of my day job, right? The way that I make money, which I'm very lucky to. I'm not bragging to say most actors would like to have a career as successful as mine, and I'm grateful for everything that I've been given. But I am more interested in using the money that I make off of commercials and stuff to allow me to do a play for 50 people that feels truly fulfilling, like artistically and just mentally.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Of course, 100%. It's and for you, when did that seed start to really grow in terms of getting to say, okay, well, doing commercials, doing films, this isn't really giving me any satisfaction anymore in the way that acting traditionally has been?
I would say like over the last like year, 6 months to a year. And I really hit a moment in the spring when I got an audition for the role of Geordie the waiter on a comedy. And it said Geordie the waiter, formerly known as Waiter. And I was like, listen, work is work and that's all nice, but I feel like I've gotten to the place in my career where like I shouldn't be auditioning for the role of waiter.
Yes.
And I was like, would they consider just sort of like looking at my reel and my resume and realizing that I can play a fucking waiter? And they're like, they really like to see people in the room. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't think I can do that. Like, I just don't.
Yeah.
I'm just not interested.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not about like being above things, because I've been struggling with this. Like, what does it mean that I don't want to do that anymore? And it's just that, well, I don't want to put out into the world that like I would be excited to play a waiter. Like, I don't want to walk into a room and say, will you please give me the role of waiter? Now, that being said, were they to turn around and say, we will give you the role of waiter, which comes with $3,000 to $5,000, then I would accept that.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's weird to think that like, well, why don't you just audition for it, Amir?
Because you're not getting paid to audition.
Yes, exactly. And I don't want to sort of like the work that goes into preparing and caring and driving and putting yourself in front of people.
Yes.
That takes a toll. It's not a huge toll, but it adds up.
Well, yes, and that's the thing, is that payment is not always quote unquote monetary. You know, there are many different forms of payment.
Yeah.
Paying with energy, paying with time, paying with commitment, paying, all of it.
Yeah.
And so you get this audition, you read it. What is the first feeling that you have? Like, has this been a feeling that has been steadily growing, i.e., because I'm sure that even though you and I are very different, you know, I feel that there is some similarity in terms of how each one of us is viewed. You know, it's not the typical quote unquote aesthetic. You know, there is a sense of quote unquote, for lack of a better term, otherness.
Sure.
Uniqueness.
Sure. For whatever, for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so how many times have you had the experience of getting an audition for something like Gordy the Waiter?
Yeah.
And taking the bit in the teeth.
Yeah.
And saying yes, because I know for me, I've definitely compromised self and said yes to going in on auditions for things that I literally had to hold back tears because of the internal chatter that I feel in part comes from the agents or managers or just the public at large, in that sense of you should be grateful and ba 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 and da 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 da.
Yeah. I think that in the past I took a very sort of mercenary approach to auditioning and thought none of this matters. Right? Like, this is all just a business. So whether you're auditioning for a massive role in a movie, or a small role in a massive movie, or a small role in a, sitcom on Nickelodeon for children, right? It's all just one business.
Yeah.
And the point is to meet as many people as possible and make as much money as possible. Pay your mortgage. And I think that that's a healthy way to look at it.
Yeah.
I think that if you can take that view, fucking good for you. And honestly, good for me. It worked for me for 20 years.
Yeah.
But what happened was I started to feel like that idea of none of this matters, that was eating away at me. And I was like, but I want it to matter.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't matter, I want to pay more attention to something that does.
Absolutely. 100%.
And so now, if I do fewer waiter roles, fewer, sort of whatever movies, and I have to supplement that some other way, I'll figure that out. Or if I have to just cut corners in my personal life and scrounge money, I'll do that. Or this play that I'm trying out for, which is so exciting, it works for 2 months in Arizona and pays, $900 a week, which is pretty good for theater. But it's nothing when you consider the fact that a commercial would pay me $10,000 for one commercial.
Yeah. For a day or two of work.
Yeah. I mean, it's yes.
Very. It varies.
Right.
It varies.
So I'll just go do that and then figure it out.
That must be. Does it feel liberating to you? Did
a little bit? Yes. It also feels scary. I think this is very new to me. Yeah. Deciding that I'm gonna sort of like pay attention to sort of what matters in that way, and the idea that I'm, also right now it's really slow. I'm not getting a lot of auditions, and so I can see right around the corner that one's gonna come up, and it'll be my first audition in like a month, and I'll be like, you know what, fuck it, let's just go. But I want to try and stay sort of true to myself and be like, okay, no, I'm going to turn this down. I have decided this is not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because it just hurts too much.
We're in a business that completely lacks principles and completely lacks integrity. And so
I think all businesses do. Right?
Well, yeah, I guess. But then I think of, Dr. Bronner's company.
Okay, sure.
And the CEO of that company, who is I have not met him personally, but I had heard him on a podcast, and I subsequently then did research, and was like, and that's why he sticks out in my mind as somebody who's unique in terms of.
But he owns one company.
Yeah.
His business, the shampoo body soap business as a whole, is just as soulless.
That is fair.
As Hollywood.
that is absolutely fair.
Just the same way that within Hollywood, there's people who are doing beautiful,
incredible work,
important, world-changing work. Like Ava DuVernay, right?
Yes,
she works in a terrible, soulless business.
Yes,
but in her world, she's doing amazing shit that is good for the world.
And so I guess then that goes to that bigger question, because I feel as though, and maybe it's I don't know how I could have any naivete left, but for me growing up, and tell me if this is true for you, like movies changed my life. It's one of the reasons that obviously I desired to become an actor. It wasn't even a want, it was I do that.
Yeah.
That I will be doing that. Right. It's not a question. Because I recognized and I understood before I even had the vocabulary to express it, that there was and is and always will be an inherent need to connect with others in that way through story. And I was unaware of the soul-sucking business aspect of this industry until I was in my late teens, early 20s. So on one hand I was fortunate, and on another hand I wasn't, because I wish, well, is that true? I learned everything exactly as I needed to learn it when I needed to learn it.
Yeah.
I don't like saying I wish I could have, because I love where I am and who I am now. But just thinking, when you're talking about those little pockets, like Ava's pocket, my pocket, your pocket, what we bring, the light we bring, the truth we bring, that has to, I feel, in some way, have some influence on our business as a whole. Because otherwise, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. Yeah, and I think that's the mission that all of us who have the privilege to be able to do it are on, right? Bring light to as many people as you can in whatever ways work for you, right? Now, there's some people who don't have that privilege, right? Who are just like, I don't have any skills other than acting, and my career isn't going great, so I will take any acting job I can, whether it's in an Ava DuVernay movie or, a movie, produced by NRA TV, right? Right. So I would hope that they wouldn't go that far, but so there's people who are struggling to survive. But I think that for people like us who have a little more wiggle room, right? I think it's incumbent on us to pay attention, to be mindful, and to try to operate in a way that is making the world better and sort of feeding our own souls, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And did you, because we all have lulls in our careers. We all have
ups and downs,
hills and valleys. Do you remember the first time you had a valley in your career, and what that did to you, for you, when you got to then have the next high, the next hill?
Well, to be honest, I haven't had any valleys that caused me discomfort. I've had valleys. I've had what I would call plateaus in between huge highs. But I think for me what it was is that I never expected those highs to last. And so I was comfortable sort of returning to those sort of middle plateaus, right? I don't think I've ever gone more than a few months without booking something.
That's awesome.
Whether it's a big movie or a little commercial or a little TV show, it's something, right? Now, obviously, I booked a TV show on CBS that I was getting paid like $25,000 a week for, and that was a ridiculous high. But I had a sense that like this may not last forever, so enjoy it and know that something else is going to happen. Or I did a movie called What to Expect When You're Expecting, which was basically just me and like all these amazing stars, like J-Lo and Chris Rock and Anna Kendrick and these amazing people. And there was definitely a sense that like, oh, if this goes well, this could put me at a whole new level. And as it happens, the movie didn't do terribly well. I think it was up against some crazy Superman movie or superhero movie, and it did fine. But it didn't shoot me to the next level. Instead, I just sort of came back to sort of where I was before. But I've never been to a place where I'm like, fuck, it's been a while. What am I gonna do?
But how did that feel? The hope. Like, do you let yourself have expectations, or is it, I don't really want to have that many strong feelings about this just in case this doesn't actually go well?
I think it's almost impossible not to have any expectations, to fantasize, to dream. I mean, I think that's, you have to if you're in this business, right? Yeah. Because the odds are so stacked against you that the only way you get through it is by having faith that you will beat the odds. And so every step of the way, you're just going, I'm just gonna have faith that I'm gonna continue to beat the odds. I'm beating the odds right now, and I have faith that I'm going to beat the odds tomorrow, and going to keep that going. And yeah, like when I did the show for CBS, it was called the X List. When I did X List, there was a sense of like, wow, they're promoting the hell out of this. Like what if I'm a mainstay on CBS for 5 years? Like what if I have that kind of comfort? Of course you think about that. But it's the same, honestly, it's the same kind of hope that you have when you buy a lottery ticket, which is that you buy the lottery ticket and you go, this is very unlikely, but you do think about the house. You do think about the private jet, right? Yeah. And you sure as shit check the numbers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But when you don't win the lottery, you don't get terribly upset.
But I feel that there is something to be said about, especially for bigger films, right? And all of this hype and like the numbers and and this is going to do so well.
Definitely.
And there's this expectation that I feel is also almost like put in your lap.
Yeah.
Of it's not just a singular individual having a hope. Mm-hmm. It's a whole entire crowd of people saying, this is going to do well. Get ready. Be excited.
Yeah.
This is great. Yeah. Why aren't you more excited?
Yeah, sure.
And then that inevitable letdown where it's, well, didn't do as well as we thought. Like, it makes me think of Judy Garland, the year that she was nominated for A Star Is Born, and she ended up losing to Grace Kelly. Uh-huh. And she was in the hospital, just had her son, and there were cameras set up in her hospital room.
Oh, God.
off the chance because she was considered a shoo-in. Like, Star is Born, are you kidding me? Sid loved everything she did. Brilliant, 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 brilliant work. And as soon as they found out that it was Grace Kelly and it wasn't Judy Garland, they packed up those cameras. Yeah. They packed up those lights so quickly and got the hell out of there, you know? And it makes me think of, like, it's such a perfect visual, I feel, for what we can experience in this business in terms of the success, the potential success of a film. And then when it doesn't go the way that they thought, everyone kind of leaves and disperses. And then you're like, that room emptied out quick.
Yeah.
You know, so, and that, especially when I was younger, was difficult for me to receive and to contend with, because I had this idea of collaboration and unity with like the studio and the publicists and like the director and the producers and the fellow co-stars, and it's almost like you lose your family in a way, but that, and I'm not comparing it to actually losing one's family, to be very clear. But there, at least for me, there was like there were moments of having such huge letdowns.
Yeah.
And I mean, what is our age difference, if you don't mind me
I'm 42.
asking? Okay, so I'm 36.
Okay.
So it's a few years.
Yeah.
But we're in the same.
Yeah.
We're in the same bracket, the box.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
It's like,
I mean, in
35
Hollywood
to,
terms, you're completely over the hill.
I mean, you know what? I'll say this. In Hollywood terms, I don't know that I ever will be over the hill, quote unquote, in this way. Because I've never played the classic, quote unquote, ingenue.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a freedom I feel that I have that. And I was just watching an interview that the brilliant, ineffable Frances McDormand gave the other night, and she was talking about the clear distinction between movie stars and actors who work in movies.
Yeah.
And I'm not a movie star.
Right.
I'm an actor who has gotten to consistently work in movies, and within that, getting the added benefit, which I didn't think when I was younger. And it's such an oxy-fucking-moron.
Right.
Like, I'm an actor. You know, like the character in front of that word, like character actor versus like,
sure.
Well, isn't that what we're playing?
Yeah.
Characters. Isn't that our job?
Right.
And so I'm grateful that I've almost bypassed that over the hill thing, because I wasn't fucking like young Leo DiCaprio,
sure,
you know, in films and like whatever. And on top of that, I don't want to play. I never had a desire to play the quote unquote straight man to someone else. Like, I'd rather steal a scene.
Yeah,
because I'd rather be known for my talent than my looks. You know?
Yeah.
And I feel that
I'd love to be known for my looks.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think you're a very handsome man.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
I think I haven't seen too many Middle Eastern guys being known for their looks. And so I'd love to see that. I think and a lot of this is just bullshit that I've internalized, but I've always had a sense of, well, you'll never be known for your looks. So what's great is that you're funny. What's great is that you're talented.
Yeah.
What's great is that you're smart.
Yeah.
But obviously, looking the way you look, Amir,
I understand what you're,
and the number of auditions I get where they're like, character men only, expressive faces, not too handsome. you know? And so man, I would love to be just objectified and been like, well, we had to cast him just because he's handsome.
Well, we did have a sex scene in our movie together. We did play.
But it was
play
a character sex scene.
I mean, it was the most uncomfortable. I'm so grateful that you're okay. I was so fucking worried
that did rip one of my favorite pairs of pants.
I am sorry, but I am not the producer of that film, so talk to someone else about it. But I am sorry. Yeah, I definitely got nipped on the thigh with that. Just check out Stuck. It's the sex scene alone.
Stuck. Check it out, guys.
It's worth it.
It's funny though. I was talking to my wife about this, and
your wife Nina,
yes,
who's also incredible and has an incredible travel podcast.
That's right.
That
called Get to the Point podcast.
Yes,
saving money. No joke.
There you go. Nina, you're welcome for that plug.
Yeah, it's all about points and miles and learning how to travel for free. So give it a listen. We're plugging her since I have nothing to plug. But I was talking...
Hopefully this play.
Hey, there you go.
In Arizona.
Yeah. I was talking to her about our love languages. And one of the things that we sort of came to was that, I compliment her a lot, and sometimes I compliment her on her looks. And she was like, I appreciate that sort of in theory, but I want you to know that doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't make me feel loved. And I was like, that's really interesting because like all I want is for someone to compliment me on my looks. And she's like, really? Like that just, and we talked about how a lot of that probably comes from our different upbringings, right? She has always been an attractive girl and then woman, right? Like she was getting compliments on her looks starting from age 13. And so very quickly she got to a place where like, I don't give a shit about this. I didn't earn my good looks. It's pointless, right? Whereas me, I have almost never been complimented on my good looks. Whether that is because I had a fucking monobrow until age 15 or the fact that maybe people don't always see Middle Eastern men as sort of sex symbols, romantic leads, traditionally handsome. You know what I mean? And so it's yeah. So I've actually said to my wife, like, I would love for you to objectify me more. Like, yeah, just like slap my ass walking around the apartment. Like that's cool. That's awesome.
Oh, I love that.
I'm into that.
and what other love language do you have? Do you like, is that the primary one? What is the secondary?
I would say my primary one is physical affection. And then secondary is like words of kindness.
Okay.
Yeah. And hers is gifts and acts of service.
Okay. And then what is there's one more. There's 5.
Quality time.
Quality time.
Yeah.
That is.
The 5 Love Languages, if you haven't read it, is a great book, guys.
Man, we're just plugging all sorts of
Pluggy
shit
plug.
today.
Yeah.
It is a really great book. My former therapist had suggested that I read it years ago, which I did. And I too, like you, definitely physical affection and words of kindness. It's, and the way that I demonstrate, well, and I would throw in once in a while acts of service.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think all people appreciate all five. and perform all 5. The tricky part is when you get into a relationship with someone whose strengths or desires are different sort of languages than your own.
Yeah.
I think that's when people say relationships are hard work, I honestly think that's the number one hardest thing is learning the other person's language if it's not your first or your second language.
Yeah. And then I would also add to that I feel like the evolution of my language has my own language has changed, and that I guess is also in part of then getting to listen to my wife, and there's a natural call and response, and we have this thing additionally where because Heather produced Stuck and co-wrote it with Dave Mickle. I always feel like I don't give him credit, and I desire to give him credit. I'm talking about my wife, and I love my wife. But we have this thing in our relationship where it's very easy to be like, I love you too, right? And taking a minute to say, receiving practice. And be like, say it again, I love you. And really taking that moment to receive. That's where I feel I've gotten to grow the most, is in the receiving. Like in the receiving, which has allowed me then to grow in my capacity to give, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And so you and Nina have been together.
We've been together for 12 years, married for 8. Oh my God. Yeah.
I love it. So you made it past 7-year itch.
That's right.
Congratulations.
2 7-year itches.
Wow. And how has your relationship, also helped to shape you creatively? Because at least for me, it's hard to, what is the word I'm looking for? It starts with a C. Compartmentalize. Like if I sing it out, it comes.
I like that. It's a good trick.
But what has that evolution been like for you within your relationship?
God, how has she helped me creatively? Well, I've learned a lot from her. Obviously being my longest relationship of my life, I've learned a lot about how to coexist with someone else who is different in certain ways. She's also taught me a lot about just sort of feminism and women in general. Not just high key misogyny, but low key misogyny and how it operates. And so I think that you're a more creative person when you're more empathetic.
Yes.
I think that empathy leads to creativity, or at least to creative thinking. That if the more people you feel like you have an in to understanding, the more creative your thinking can be. The more sort of options you see in the world, right? You're less narrow-minded.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're sort of a seeker of understanding, that the process of understanding someone has a creative element to it.
Yes.
And so just being with someone who has helped me see the world in new ways has just helped me grow as a person. And it's also changed what I find interesting. I no longer find I'm more open than I used to be. This is terrible that I don't know this, but who sang "I Love Rock and Roll"? Is that
Joan Jett?
Joan Jett. Okay, I was about to say Pat Benatar, but I was like, that's wrong. I that song came on the radio the other day, and I turned to her and I said, "Do you know, I remember seeing this video when I was like 13 or something, and I remember something deep inside me being upset that Joan Jett was not terribly feminine and seemed confident." And I was like, and I was thinking about it, I was like, wow, what? That's a long way. That's a long time ago. And a lot has happened since then. Right. But it's fascinating because I couldn't have put my finger on it back then, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. But I just remember being like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, the little misogynistic 13-year-old boy. Like, I'm not mad at myself for being a misogynistic 13-year-old because, for goodness sake.
But what was the thing that? But my question is then, what was the thing that you didn't like? I.e., what about her confidence scared you?
God, fuck if I know. I mean, I think it was just that, like, that was probably sort of frowned upon generally, right? By society, and probably still is, right? I think in 2019, if you're a woman who's not altogether feminine but confident, a big part of society hates you.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, yes. I literally just chopped off all of my hair 2 weeks ago, which was, aside from my big boobs, the most feminine
presenting thing about it. Yeah, sure.
And when I got rid of it, and I will give credit where credit's due. I'd been thinking about cutting my hair for quite some time and was continually met with, from people in my life to people in the business, like agents and whoever, don't cut your hair. Your hair's beautiful. Your hair's beautiful. Don't cut it. Bah, bah, bah. And so I continually acquiesced, and I take full responsibility because ultimately it was my choice. But it really kind of allowed other people to have that much power. And I was watching, I had already had a haircut scheduled to get a trim because I get my hair cut like once every year and a half because I just don't give a shit. And I had it scheduled, and Heather and I are watching a Brene Brown special on Netflix.
Plug.
And yes, another plug. Brene Brown, if you hear this, I really want you on my show. And I look forward to that. I'm putting that out into the ether, into the waves of podcast listeners. And she talked about just being in the arena of life, and that you will fail. You will be bloodied. And the willingness to be vulnerable. Like, vulnerability and courage are two sides of the same coin. Just was like, fuck this. I want to cut it. I want to cut it all off. I don't want to hide anymore. I just want to be free. And so next day, there in sweet Boyd, another plug, Boyd's Place in Los Angeles, if you want to get a really awesome haircut. She was like, all right, so like we're going to do a trim. And I was like, let's cut it all off. And as soon as I did it and I walked outside, and this is something that I have to look at within self too, but there was an immediate sense of, I can't hide anymore. Hair was a very wonderful place that I could hide.
Yeah.
I could hide behind it.
Yeah.
And it also, there was a softness, i.e., I was not threatening to anybody. And walking around and navigating the world for the first few days with this new experience on my head was really kind of challenging, like really challenging, because I saw the difference in how I was treated.
Yeah, I mean, that's not I've read more than one account from women who've chopped off their hair and said it was emotional. It changed the way they were treated.
Yeah.
It changed the way they thought of themselves. It's so remarkable.
But I'm not hot, i.e., I'm like physically not hot
Oh, right.
anymore. I mean, I do consider myself
And it
a
is hot
person,
here, so
and
it's nice. I can't imagine having all that. But so like what I was like, it's changed the way I look at art. A lot of times I'll see a movie advertised, and I'll go, oh well, that's not made for me, and I'll realize it's because it's mostly women in it, and why did I think that?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And so then I'll go watch it and like it and be like, oh, okay, we're breaking centuries old habits.
Oh, I mean, and that's
you know what I mean?
And here's the thing: it's like, you know, I must say, you are constant. You're not somebody that just talks the talk to appear quote unquote woke or whatever the fuck. You know, you're constant and consistent, and are always open to learning more. And there's there's a humility that you possess, which I really admire, and not a lot of, well, I don't want to say that. It's gratifying for me to see individuals that are cisgendered males that are willing to engage in the conscious evolution of self and society, and like, thank you genuinely.
Oh, well,
you know,
you're welcome.
and I say that not from a place of groveling, but really more just, I see you.
Yeah.
You know, and also I'm like, hold on a second. Like, as we said before this started, you know, dumpster fire of 2019.
Right.
And everything that is going on, and how we're in the middle of such a quote unquote call out culture, and how easy it, and I can definitely speak for myself in this, have had those moments of definitely tripping up and calling out whoever, like, just calling out.
Yeah.
And how do you, because I do feel that, like, we're all getting to continually learn and grow.
Yeah.
How have you, and how do you continue to learn and grow, and also set those boundaries, if that makes sense?
What kind of boundaries? I was with you until you talked about boundaries.
In the sense of, I am right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that,
you know, it's funny. I think this all has to do, self-reflection, growth, and good acting are live on a very similar wavelength for me. When I get involved in a meaty script, what I do is, and this is stuff that my acting teacher Richard Side sort of helped sort of develop, but I see myself as like one of those old stereo equalizers where there's like little knobs all along.
Yeah.
And in the process of investigating the script, I go, oh, right here, I'm exactly like my character. But on this knob here, I'm at a 7, whereas the character is at a 6 or whatever, right? All of that investigation into how sort of I'm different from my character is very similar, I think, to the investigation that you do into yourself.
Yes.
Right? Sort of understanding what is making me think, what is making me hold this opinion at this moment. And for me, it's very fun to investigate characters, whether those characters are characters of the script or the character is myself. So I actually really, this idea of being woke, in addition to it being sort of important to be a more progressive person and to have empathy with people, I also honestly enjoy. It's fun for me. It's fun for me to see someone walking down the street with a dress and a beard and in my head go, oh, that's weird. I don't like that. And then go, why did that happen?
Gotcha.
Where did that come from?
Gotcha.
Who said that?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, I'll be honest. A lot of times when I see genderqueer people, something in my lizard brain goes, that's not supposed to be like that. And then I go, wait a second. Why the fuck does that matter?
Yeah.
And in that moment, I sort of silently thank that person for opening my eyes to the idea that gender conformity is bullshit and pointless and misogynistic.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And making that realization is the same way of making a sort of realization about a character, about going, oh, this character he's just got a lot more pent up anger than I do.
But
right?
but you have to be honest, right? Not most people are willing to engage in self-reflection. Most people are not willing to engage in self-assessment and looking into where and how they can grow.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is probably just ego. And
so where did that willingness come from for you? I know you talked about
I guess what it is that like the idea that I'm wrong about something is okay. Like I can be wrong. Mm-hmm. That's not a statement of my moral character. It's that I held an incorrect belief. And at one point, that belief was that people shouldn't have a beard and a dress. That's an incorrect belief, right? And for me to go, oh, well, I was wrong. Mm-hmm. And now I'm right.
Yeah.
Now I have a deeper understanding of what gender is and isn't.
Yeah.
And it's okay that I was wrong. Like, I guess I've never judged ignorance as harshly as others do.
Okay.
I have a lot of empathy for people who are ignorant. Sometimes too much. Sometimes not enough. But I feel like nobody wants to be ignorant. Maybe they do, but I feel like most people want to be good. Most people want to be good. They don't always know how, but they want to be. And I think that if you're ignorant, you just don't know how to be good, right? Like I didn't know how to be good to that genderqueer person, and then something in my brain flipped, and I went, ugh, acceptance. Conformity is bullshit. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. I go, that's so much easier. Mm-hmm. And now I can be better to this person. Mm-hmm.
Kind.
Yeah.
Kind.
Yeah.
And I am not, I feel like words like good and bad are judgments. Mm-hmm. And I try to reserve those words for movies or books or TV shows.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Goodness is a word that makes me feel uncomfortable when talking about human beings. Kindness, though, is a word that pops out. And
so here's why I use the word good.
Yeah.
I think that most people want to be good to each other. Not everyone believes that being kind is good at times. Some people believe that I should be cruel to you and that would be good for you because blah, 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 blah.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
I disagree with that across the board. But I know that people, when they are being good or when they're having any kind of behavior, they believe they're being good.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And
they may not fucking understand what kindness is at all. And I wish that everyone had more desire to be kind, but I don't think it occurs to there's too many people to whom it does not occur to be kind.
I mean, this just makes me what does it make me do? It makes me desire to be kinder. I mean, if getting to the bones about it, because I'm like, life is heartbreaking. It is. Life is heartbreaking. I think that every single day that we even get up and put our feet on the floor and like sometimes like brushing your teeth is like the kindest thing you can do for yourself in a day. And that's it. Just brush the teeth. Don't even take a shower. Don't even put on deodorant. Like keep your sweatpants on all day and just watch TV and eat Cheetos, but you brushed your teeth. That was a kind act.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm like, you've given me something to go home and think about and write about more.
All right.
Just in terms of the difference between goodness and kindness and where those intersect, how they might intersect.
Yeah.
Because I was raised Roman Catholic, aka filled with a ton of guilt and shame.
Sure.
And growing up being told, well, you've got to be a good girl. Be a good girl. Well, what does being good mean?
Right.
And that very narrow-minded yet packed full of all of these stipulations that would enable me to be good, look good in the eyes of the church, in the eyes of God, in the eyes of society. And I never understood how you could be an asshole and
Be thought of as good.
quote unquote good,
Right.
as opposed to, well, what about just being kind
Right.
and loving?
Yeah.
What about that?
Yeah.
It's never made sense to me.
Right.
And on that, and yeah, I'm going to say, like, on that note, I want to end here.
Okay.
Just like on that message of kindness. And I appreciate every single person that comes on the show. I especially appreciate you getting to come on the show. Like,
Pleasure.
Like, thank you.
My pleasure.
I mean, like, will you come back?
I would love to.
Yay! All right. And you said that you have nothing to plug.
I don't. I'll plug Nina's podcast again. Get to
Okay.
the Point podcast. Saving money, no joke.
And also Stuck, which I hear now is going to be on HBO.
Oh,
soon.
are you serious?
Yeah.
Dope.
Yes.
Which means it'll be on HBO. It'll be on HBO on demand.
Yes.
You don't have to just wait for it to show up. You can
Yeah.
go to the HBO menu. So it'll be on HBO Go.
Yeah,
right?
and it's already on Amazon.
Boom.
So yeah, I love you. I'm grateful that I get to have you in my life, and thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right, bye guys.